Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Rashbi here, Rabbi Shmuel ben Yehoshua, Rabbi Stephen Epstein. And this is the Parsha for Yom Kippur. And we're going to talk a little bit about Rosh Hashanah too, since I didn't quite get that. So this year, 5785, we have kind of a little bit of a double portion. So we've got Yom Kippur coinciding with Shabbat. So we've talked in the past about how they figure out and allocate the various parashot of the Torah. And even though there's about 54 parshas, the Torah is divided into that. There are times like this year, 5785, when a Shabbat is coinciding with a major holiday. And on Yom Kippur, that has a special portion reading. So we have to account for that as we go through the schedule. Now, 5784 is a leap year, which means we have the extra month, 4 extra weeks with which to do Parsha. But 5785 will not be that. And as we go, we'll maybe have a few double portions and maybe coinciding with a few festivals. This year is particularly interesting because Rosh Hashanah and the first 2 days of Sukkot and Shemini Atzeret and Simchat Torah are on Thursdays and Fridays, which means we've kind of got a little bit of a three. I don't know if this is a bad symbol. We've got the 3 festival holidays, Shabbat, just one right after another. So it should be interesting this year. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Yom Kippur, and then we'll talk a little bit about Rosh Hashanah and what those portions involve. So Yom Kippur is fairly evident. They talk about the first Yom Kippur, which is where Israel is in the wilderness, and this comes in Leviticus. And I'd love to tell you that the procedure for atonement comes right after the golden calf, but that's way back in Exodus. That's toward the first part of Exodus when, Moses is up there doing his thing. We're getting some commandments. And all of a sudden God says, you better get down there. These people have gone off the rail, So it's quite a while. It's chapter 16, I believe, is our Yom Kippur reading, where God lays out the process for making atonement. Now, let's go through that real quick. So the high priest, in this case, Aaron, goes into the Holy of Holies, and let's look at it this way. The mobile tabernacle was kind of like a box within a box. I mean, you had this big rectangle that contained various areas where they do different things. You had an entryway, you had the laver with the 2 sprouts, one on top for the hands, one on bottom for the feet. And it was a pretty big laver. Then you had the menorah, you had the altar for the offerings, you had the altar for the incense, you had a table for the showbread, and you had all these things. Then you had this inner sanctum, the Kodesh Kodeshim, the Holy of Holies. Only the high priest goes in there, and only on Yom Kippur. Now, it's really interesting when you look at our Machzor. Machzor, I believe, means cycle. And a Machzor is a prayer book designed for a specific holiday. And when we think of Machzor, we think of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Some publishers will do a specific volume for Rosh Hashanah service. Some will do for Yom Kippur. Now, I have the art scroll. I have, the one that we use, the Machzor Chadash, that we use in our synagogue. But the art scroll which is an Orthodox publisher, publishes Machzorim for not only Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, which includes Shemini Atzeret and Simchat Torah. They also publish a Passover, and they also do it on Shavuot, and they also do a Tisha B'Av. I like it because it really kind of helps me as a rabbi keep track of what needs to be done and what doesn't. But you would think, yes, at this point, I kind of know already. I've been doing it long enough, but it's nice to have it in front of you. It's kind of nice, because I'm up there doing the prayers, going through the service, and it's nice to have that guide, if you will. So that's the Machzorim. So we have the process for making atonement. And in the Siddur Chadash, in the Machzor Chadash that we have, it mentions that the high priest makes three offerings, one for himself, one for his family, and one for Kalal Yisrael, the congregation of Israel. And that, I believe, is an interpretation, because it says in the actual in the actual Torah that the high priest will make atonement for him and his family. So is that one atonement inclusive, or is it two? And the atonement says he uses his own bull, slaughters it, offers it, does the thing with the altar, puts the blood on the horns of the altar. Then he does it again for the family, or maybe it's all inclusive. Then he comes out of the Kodesh Kodeshim and he makes it, expiation, teshuva for Kalal Yisrael. Meanwhile, everybody, of course, is afflicting themselves. Afflicting meaning you don't eat, you don't drink, no pleasure, which means no sex. Not that you have time for it because you're busy. We're in services all day, right? And then they do the thing with the scapegoats. Well, that's what it's called, the scapegoat. So they got these two goats, and by lot, they decide which one is going to be the offering and which one goes to Azazel. Azazel, no, is not a mountain god. It is not a mountain demon. It is not a spirit. All that superstition, needs to go by the wayside. I guess in the Middle Ages, Judaism kind of got locked into some superstition in accord with some of the other religion, the big one, Christianity, was going through. But the bottom line is that it goes to Azazel, the strength of God. That's kind of what it means. Azal, kind of like Chazak, El, which is a generic term from the Babylonian, meaning God. And we've got different terms for God. So yeah, you'll see a few of them. And El is actually the word for God that we use in names. My own name, Shmuel, his name is God. Yismael comes from, the right, which is mercy. Again, in Judaism, Hebrew words tend, ancient Hebrew is a conceptual language. And you'll find that certain words have 2, 3, 4 meanings. Believe it or not, the word Shabbat comes from the word shave, which means rest. It also means complete, and actually shalom means completion. So when you say Shabbat Shalom, what you're really saying is complete rest. Interesting, huh? Shabbat also comes from the word Shabbat, which means Shavua, which means seventh day, right? That's how they get these words. Very ancient Hebrew was a fairly simple language and very, very conceptual. Okay, so they look at the two goats, they choose by lot which one gets offered. The other one goes off to Azazel, wraps a red thread around the goat. And when that red thread turns white, it means that Israel's sins are forgiven. So that's our morning reading. Now, the afternoon reading, and we've talked about this, chapter 18 of Leviticus, and all my facial expressions are because of what it is. It contains the sexual deviances. And it starts out as God's telling Moses, when you go to the promised land, when you get there, do not copy the rites and the rituals and the habits of the Egyptians that you just left, and do not imitate the rituals, rites, and behavior of the Canaanites that you're going to dispossess. Then it goes through all these forbidden relationships. And some of them are pretty obvious. Okay, your father's mother, off limits. Your father dies, you want to go have relations with your stepmother, not going to happen. Your sister, your cousin, first cousin, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, it's the one about, man shall not sleep with man, which has been a bone of contention in the modern age as people sought to enforce gay rights. We now have rabbis and cantors that are homosexuals. I don't even know if you can say that. What's the word? Queer? I hate that. But that have same-sex relationships. And they justify this by saying, well, you got to honor the stranger. I say, look, it was a completely different relationship that those ancient societies had. It wasn't a consensual adult relationship. It was something else, and there was a party that was forced. I'm not going to go further than that. I'm just going to leave it right there. So that's kind of my opinion. Feel the way you feel, interpret it as you will. There's always different interpretations for verses. So that's fine. You know, we just want to be humanistic. Very briefly, the Rosh Hashanah readings were all about giving birth to Isaac, which is kind of the birth of Judaism in a way. Also, they say that Isaac was conceived on Rosh Hashanah. And the Rosh Hashanah second reading is about the Akedah, the binding, where Abraham and the adult Isaac go up, and Isaac's going to be offered, and he submits to it. They see the ram, they do the ram instead. And as kind of an honor to the ram and kind of as practicality, today we blow the shofar. And we do not blow the shofar on Shabbat, lest somebody think that you carried that shofar into the shul. That's the reason. Okay. All right. Here's Rav Shmuel bidding you good Yontif, which is Yiddish, good Yom Tov, which is a good, happy day, good day. And Chag Sameach, Happy New Year. May you be inscribed and sealed in the book of life. Thank you.